I'm Ben Gonzalez. Well, we've all heard kind of mysterious beeps or chirps coming out of our smoke or carbon monoxide alarms from time to time. But did you know that those sounds have specific meanings, and knowing the difference could be life-saving? So joining us today to kind of decode those messages is Kelly Ransdell from the National Fire Protection Association. Welcome back, Kelly.
Thanks, Ben. Always a pleasure to be with you.
You too. Hey, when your smoke or carbon monoxide alarm is making a noise, it's not always because it's going off. So what do those different sounds mean?
Yeah, so thank you for taking the time to talk about this really important issue that we're focusing on for Fire Prevention Week. We want people to learn the sounds of fire safety, and with that, COVID kind of gave us the opportunity to see inside people's homes. And sometimes people had alarms doing things, either alerting or chirping, and they had no idea what that meant. So this year's campaign focuses on the differences between them. So let's talk through the different sounds that you might have from a traditional smoke alarm. They look like this. Most people are probably familiar with them. And we'll also tell you what a CO alarm will sound like too. And these look a little different. These are actually ones that you can travel with. And so I want to talk to you about that later, Ben, also. So they're going to have different sequences of beeps. So let's do the first one, which is the smoke alarm beep. So that's going to be a 3 beep sequence. That's going to be what a traditional smoke alarm will sound like when it alerts. Then we have what's called a T4. This is going to be 4 beeps, and that is what a CO alarm will sound like. So 3 beeps is a smoke alarm, 4 beeps is a CO alarm, and then we do have, this is one of the sounds that people hear and they may not know exactly what it is, except it usually happens in the middle of the night. The famous chirp, and I'll do that one more time. Because people say, oh, I think I heard something, but maybe not. And that could mean one of 2 things. If you have a CO alarm or a smoke alarm that you can replace the battery, it can mean that your battery is low. But if it's a sealed-in unit, which means the battery is contained inside it, that means end of life. So it's really you'll have to investigate a little further and decide what's going on with that. And then we have some new technology that includes voiceover. And I did want to share with you that. Same pattern as before.
Fire, fire. Warning, carbon monoxide.
So you can see that still the same pattern. 3 beeps, fire, fire. 4 beeps, warning, carbon monoxide. So these are just alternative ways of notifying you that there is an emergency in your home.
And does having the voice help certain folks to wake up or things like that?
Yeah, so this is one of those hard discussions we always have. Research shows that smoke alarms will give you early notification, which is why it's so important you have enough of those on each level of your home. But then also in certain audiences, it may happen that they prefer to have one of these voiceovers as well. So you're woken up and then you hear fire besides just the beep. Unfortunately, when it comes to kids, we tell parents that you really need to have a plan to help them evacuate, especially small children, but even teenagers, because if I have a teenager at home and they're hard to wake up sometimes. So we have to have a plan to make sure that they wake up, because even the loudest of alarms may not wake them up. And I experienced this with my daughter. We were in a hotel. The alarm, the loudest one I've ever heard, went off. She never woke up. And so it really brought this, to something very personal for me, because I had to wake her up for us to evacuate. And so you can imagine just your traditional smoke alarm going off definitely may not if a horn type device didn't wake her up. So having a home escape plan that includes a plan for your kids is one of the important parts of this program.
Well, that brought to mind something else about people that might not wake up. What about folks with hearing loss or other special needs that makes them harder to wake up? Is there something on the market for them?
There are. We have deaf and hard of hearing alarms. Now, they're going to use a traditional smoke alarm first. So that first T3 3-beep smoke alarm will then activate either a bed shaker with a strobe, and there's some alternative devices. So my mother is hearing impaired. On her nightstand, we have a special alarm that when the traditional smoke alarm goes off, it activates it and it flashes and says fire. Even though she's hearing impaired, there may be other people that aren't. It's going to say fire, fire. And then there's a cable that goes to what we call a bed shaker. Now, the bed shaker actually goes underneath your pillow. So your head is laying on a pillow and you have this bed shaker. It's going to vibrate that to notify you that there's an emergency. And that is what we want to make sure people know about, is if people have hearing aids and they have hearing loss, some are deaf and hard of hearing, it is so important that you have a deaf and hard of hearing alarm to notify them if there's an emergency in their home.
Wow, I didn't even know those kind of things existed. You mentioned also like the chirping. If you need to replace a battery or it keeps chirping, is there a place where you can see how old your detector is?
So all smoke alarms are going to have either the manufacturer date or an expiration date on them. So on the back of the smoke alarm, it's going to tell you the date of manufacture. Now, it depends on the brand, and this is where your brand of smoke alarm, it's important that you read it and you look at it. The one I have actually has a place for me to put the day I installed it and the day it expires. This type is actually from installation. So from the day I install it, it's going to be 10 years from that date. But some are from manufacturer date. So it's really important that you read the instructions, and they are available online. If you didn't keep them, that's okay. Read them online and see, but they can be anywhere from date of manufacture to installation date, a range of about 10 years.
And is that the same for carbon monoxide alarms? Do they also have kind of an end of life?
They do have an end of life. Now, they're a little different. This one has a little place that says replace by, but they can range anywhere from 5 to 10 years. Now, older technology may only last 5 years. The newer alarms can last anywhere from 7 to 10 years is the range. And something I like to remind people is they say, well, no big deal. You know, I have vintage smoke alarms. Well, even if you test them monthly, alarms that are older than the specified amount of time of the manufacturer, in spite of the fact that you can push and hold the test button and it alerts, that does not mean that it can actually sense and do what it needs to do to activate in an emergency situation. So people have a false sense of, oh, well, it's still up there, I'm sure it's working. But that is not always the case. So it is so important that you know the age of your alarms. And so we say we want you to test them monthly. We want you to change the batteries if they have batteries annually. And then we want you to replace the alarms every decade, so every 10 years. So that's a good way to remember. Test monthly, change the batteries, find a special day one time a year, and then after 10 years, replace them out so that you have coverage in your home.
Gotcha. So the vintage alarms are not good.
No, not with this.
Well, let's talk about the best way to install and use smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. You kind of need to make a plan for your home and think about where you're placing them so they do their best work, right?
Absolutely. We want you to have smoke alarms inside and outside each bedroom, on each level of your home. It's so important that they're in each level of your home. And then in any room that you use for a sleeping area. Now, the reason I say it like that is I didn't say a bedroom. I said a sleeping area because some people sleep on a couch or they may sleep in a recliner due to physical issues, space limitations. And there's also other areas of homes that if you have an extended family, you may have converted an area to a sleeping area. It is so important that you have smoke alarms available there so that everybody gets notification. And in a perfect world, all those alarms would be interconnected. And that means if one goes off, they all go off. Those can be hardwired, but if you don't have that, now they have something called wireless interconnected. So even though you don't have to get an electrician, they actually will talk to each other. And if one goes off, they all go off, which is an ideal situation. And so we want to make sure you have enough smoke alarms. Now, CO alarms are a little different. When we start thinking about CO alarms, there's certain things you need to take into account. One is, do you have an attached garage? Now, that's one that I like to pull out because people say, well, what's a garage got to do with CO? Well, with cars that have auto start and also other equipment you may store in your garage, they can create CO. So that may be a generator that you may have stored there and maybe you mistakenly have it running, or a vehicle that you leave running. And we've had that happen. Some of the newer vehicles are very quiet. And so for my mom who's hearing impaired, sometimes she thinks she turned off a car that's a button, but she can't even hear the car because it's so quiet. And we found this with several senior adults. So having an attached garage is one of the things that may give you an additional hazard. So we want you to have a CO alarm if you have an attached garage. If you have any fossil fuel burning appliance, that can be a water heater that uses gas, natural, or propane. If you have a generator that you use in your home, with the recent disasters in Louisiana and parts of Texas, certainly people have been using generators for a long amount of time, portable and stationary ones. So having CO alarms is so important because it can save your family from exposure. And then also you want to have it on each level of your home, usually outside the sleeping areas. So you wouldn't have as many of these alarms, but you would want to make sure you have enough coverage of those. But those are just some of the criteria. And then I also tell people that if you travel, it's very important that in your suitcase, pack you one of these little travel CO alarms. We have heard of several tragedies that occurred when people go on vacation. They may be in a hotel or a motel. Not always do they have CO alarms. They don't always have them. But also vacation rentals and condos. We've had some disasters that have occurred when people went on vacation, and we lost a whole family in Mexico where the hot water heater had put carbon monoxide in it, and so they never came back from vacation. So it's really important to have these. Now, CO is the same composition as air. So what that means is I put this in my suitcase, and I just open my suitcase up and leave it out in the open, and CO just kind of mixes in the air. Whereas when we talk about smoke alarms, smoke rises and then fills a room. So two different things, but equally lethal.
Yeah, and carbon monoxide is so scary because you can't tell it's there. You can't smell it or see it, and it'll kill you.
Absolutely. And many people don't know about the importance of having CO alarms. So we're really making sure to educate people on how important it is to have these in your home.
Perfect. Well, any final tips before we let you go about just staying fire safe this season?
Always a good idea to have working smoke alarms, have working CO alarms, but then also have a family escape plan. And that is practice it during the day and practice it at night. That seems so scary, but once they do it at night and you take them out and they know what to do in an emergency, it will calm their fears. And then pick your meeting place. Depending on where you live, your meeting place may be, in my case, it's a bird feeder that sits at the end of my driveway, but I have small kids, so I don't want them at my mailbox, which is on the road, because if a fire truck were to come up, I would worry about them being in the roadway. So we have one that's in the front of our home. Pick a spot that's safe, that everybody knows about, and designate that, and then practice, practice, practice. The other thing is a lot of times people have extended family that stays with them. If you have somebody with mobility issues, so senior adults in your home, you really need to plan around their abilities. And that may mean if you have a 2-story home, that they would need to sleep on the bottom floor, on the floor that you can help them egress. Because if they're upstairs and you can't help them evacuate in a hurry, that can be the difference in life and death. So having those conversations about getting small children out, if you have senior adults, also getting them out, but most importantly, have that plan, practice it, and go to your outside meeting place. That's the way that we can help people stay fire safe.
Thanks so much, Kelly. Every time you come on, I learn something. I was going to say, hey, we can meet at the mailbox, but now I'm thinking, well, yeah, that is too close to the road. So I think we'll go over to the neighbor's house, and that'll be the way to do it. Well, we want everyone to be fire safe, so you don't have to ever file an insurance claim because of a fire. But if you have questions about your homeowners or renters insurance, start on our website. It's tdi.texas.gov. You can always also call our helpline at 800-252-3439. So for Kelly Ransdell, I'm Ben Gonzalez, and this is TDI.